Join us today for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where we review the 2023 season for those Arizona Diamondbacks.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my co-host, my partner in crime, my better half, Matthew Adney, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Adney. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And guess what? If you do decide to do that for us, you get a little opportunity here. Take a screenshot of your rating and review, email over to us at fantasymds@gmail.com, or if it's easier for you, just send it over to us on Twitter or Instagram, and you will get an opportunity to join our listener league for next season. We're probably revealing the winner on that a couple months out from now as we get closer into the season. We'll keep you guys updated on that situation. And lastly, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes you to the channel, also gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. All right, guys, so let's get into it here. We're talking about those Arizona Diamondbacks, kind of snuck into the playoffs there, finishing behind the Dodgers in the NL West with a record of 84-78, ultimately fell in that World Series. To that Texas Rangers team. Once again, shout out to the Texas Rangers for winning the World Series. Matt, so what are your thoughts here on the Diamondbacks? And I think there's an obvious guy to talk about first, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, brother.
I mean, yes, you're right on that aspect, but I do want to comment on the Diamondback season. Well done, especially against the Phillies towards the end. Really didn't think they were going to get that far, but they did, and they played small ball, unlike the Phillies, who just wanted to crank everything out of the park like dodo birds. So yeah. But anyway, let's talk about Mr. Corbin Carroll. Let's talk about fantasy baseball now, and let me stop complaining. Corbin Carroll, fantastic season. Legit, we all knew this kid kind of had it in him, but we didn't think it was going to be this year. Let's be honest here. We kind of thought it was probably going to be like oh, wow, this kid's going to be, really good. Like year two is going to be incredible. But no, he just decided, I'm just going to do an almost Julio and just go complete ape. And then, the word I want to use. So Corbin Carroll went absolutely bananas this year. Let me read off his stats. In 565 at bats, he had 116 runs. He had 30 doubles, 10 triples, 25 home runs, 76 ribbies, 54 stolen bases, 57 walks to 125 strikeouts, batted .285 on the year with an OPS of 868. Honestly, overall, or no matter how you look at this dude, he was valuable in both points and roto leagues because the walk to strikeout ratio wasn't completely atrocious. It wasn't atrocious. It was right under 50%. The 10 triples alone with all those doubles are absolutely bananas in those leagues. And then, you just look at a regular standard 5x5 league, and he totally contributed just as well as Bobby Witt did, just as well as Julio did. He was right up there with the big names. And honestly, in the steals category, he was up there with obviously Bobby Witt and Ronald Acuna. So Corbin Carroll had a fantastic season. Probably was a league winner for where he was based off of
definitely
based off of ADP.
Hands down.
He was incredible, probably the best pick of the draft. So Corbin Carroll was phenomenal. Next year, he's a top 10 pick for me. I'm going to be below ADP. I'm going to be probably, towards the 10, 11, 12 pick where I'll feel comfortable doing it just based off of the fact that I actually just want to see him do it again. And I might want to call a sophomore slump in a bold prediction. We shall see. But Corbin Carroll, fantastic season. He's going to be a special player.
Yeah, Matt, pretty much in lockstep with you. Everything you said about Carroll there, you hit the nail on the head. If you do want to talk about, ADP, which we have a little bit of, I kind of talked about it in our the last episode when I talked about the Baltimore Orioles team. So far, NFBC, that's the National Fantasy Baseball Championship, one of the most well-renowned known places to play fantasy baseball. Has 17 drafts that have happened so far. Corbin Carroll has been the 5th pick overall. I see it. Like I see it. 5 tools. The guy can get it all done. He's going to be 23 next season. I think in the same sense of how we saw Bobby Witt take a nice little step forward this year. As he was already an elite player. I think Corbin Carroll does the same. I honestly think pretty much sky is the limit. The 116 runs is legit. The power speed is legit in those points leagues with 30 doubles and 10 triples, as Matt mentioned. I think there's 30 homer upside. The RBIs, depends on this team and where he's going to hit. If he's going to hit the top, the 76 RBIs is probably, around a high. 60 base stolen base upside, 285 batting average, I think is legit. I have him tied, as my number 4 outfielder with the, Fernando Tatis. And it's just really tough. You take the Corbin Carroll over the Tucker, the Tatis. I think Acuna, Betts, and, Julio are kind of safe at that outfield spot. But, you can really argue Tucker as, top 5 player, which is where he's going right now off the board. I just really love everything the kid does. And he's honestly pretty much the fastest player out there in the whole league. So the steals are super legit and can only get better from here. Let's move into a guy that kind of came back out of nowhere this year. Let's talk about Ketel Marte. Had that career high monster season, a few years back where I believe he hit 31 home runs, 32 home runs in 2019, where he went 97 runs, 92 RBIs, 329 batting average. But that seems to be the outlier for Marte's career. But a pretty strong, bounce back player of the year caliber season this year for Marte. 150 games, 569 at bats, 94 runs, 26 doubles, 9 triples, 25 homers, 82 RBIs, 8 steals, 276 batting average, and that plate discipline was just super awesome with 71 walks, 109 strikeouts. Really helped you out in those points leagues. I have Ketel Marte, honestly, probably as my number, 7, 8 second baseman going into next year. Still working on these rankings, getting them fine-tuned. But honestly, he's contributing in, 4 of the 5 major categories. With steals, still being at 8. Honestly, he's stolen over 10 bases a couple times in his career. But I think Marte, honestly, let's see where ADP has him going off the board. Kind of, this offseason is like a whole process here. Matt and I going through everything. Oh, getting him as number 10 second baseman off the board, pick 130. I'm absolutely loving that for Ketel Marte next season.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Actually, it's funny you say you have him at 8, as do I. But here's the thing, though. I'm going to be having him on my bus list. I think this is kind of a year where, it's an outlier like it was a couple years ago. And then he kind of just, steadily hung out in the Alberto Mondesi lounge.
Yes. He took the words out of my mouth. That's what I'm saying. He was always hurt, when he puts it together, though,
Oh, yeah. When he puts it together, he could be fantastic. He's just done it once before. Ketel Marte, I don't foresee staying healthy. Like, it's just not in him. Like, this was just one of those one-off years. And we'll see what happens. I guarantee he was playing for that contract extension, and he probably will get it this offseason, and then he'll be hurt again. But whatever. Ketel Marte is solid 8 pick. He's worth the risk reward at that point. But I guarantee come draft season, he's going to be going much higher because of the World Series boost that he's going to have.
He had a huge run this postseason. I believe it was, and he broke the record for most hitting streak record. I believe it was 18 games in a row in this postseason for Ketel Marte, breaking the record.
Right. So, like, with that being said, Ketel Marte, that's all going to resonate with people. But, I feel like he's going to go so overpriced, and he's probably going to be like a top 50 pick where, I'm not willing to spend that draft price on him. So, I'm going to probably have no Ketel Marte just based off of that. There's plenty of other second basemen that I'd rather have over him. But before we move on and we talk about, some guys that came out of left field, some up and coming guys, some pitching, we have a sponsor I need to talk about. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get a $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in the action. The app is super easy to use and wide ranging of betting options from spread, player props, over and under, and so much more. So visit fanduel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season today. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, all right. A little Matthew McConaughey. You know, let's talk about Mr. Christian Walker. Christian Walker, good season from him, quite honestly. Makes me, when I look at his birthday, it makes me feel real old because he's literally a month and 4 days older than me. So, yeah, we're going to be 33 this year. Happy birthday. You know, Good stuff. Honestly, fantastic year overall. 582 at bats, 86 runs, 36 doubles, 2 triples, 33 bombs, 103 ribs, 11 stolen bases. That's wonderful. Gotta love the giant bases this year. 62 to 127 strikeouts, 62 walks. That's a surprising number for me. But I mean, it's actually been a trend from last year, so I like that. And then a 258 batting average with an OPS of 830. I look at these numbers and I go, well, in my points rankings, he's going to get moved up just based off of that walk to strikeout ratio, and everything else, he's pretty much gold. I think this is legitimate. I think it's repeatable. I think that this is pretty much the season we can expect from him next year. You know, Christian Walker has been a good player now for a couple of years, and I really not a couple for a while, but I like him for fantasy now more than I would normally. So right now, where do I have Christian Walker? I have him as my 9th first baseman, just based off of the fact that first base is actually pretty deep this year. Some people are probably thinking I'm crazy, but there's just certain names I kind of just want to take the upside play, a probably better batting average than him. And that's kind of just where I'm at with Walker. So ultimately, I think Walker's going to be fantastic again. First base is pretty deep.
Yeah, man, honestly, we're pretty much spot on here. I have Walker as my number 8 first baseman, and honestly, that's where he's coming off the board so far with this early ADP. I'm going to continue to reference here throughout this episode. Pick 83 so far, ADP for Christian Walker, which is the 8th first baseman off the board. Matt, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of power. The runs and RBIs are going to be good, with him in the Arizona lineup. The batting average, I think you're going to see it could range any season depending on, how hot he is that year. Last 2 years before, 2023 was 242, 244. But before that, he had seasons of 259 and 271. Honestly, if I had to put money on it, you're talking about a 252, 253 batting average, most likely with 30 plus homers. Good counting stats. The steals did jump up to 11 this year, as Matt mentioned. I don't know if I'm banking on 10 steals from Walker again, but we know it's a possibility now. He's officially done it before. So, when you have guys like Bellinger and, even a Nolan Jones, do you take Nolan Jones over a guy like Christian Walker? I guess it depends more what your team needs, but I think there is that 30 home run upside for Nolan Jones too. But this is not a Rockies episode. But Christian Walker, I think a lot of upside, not a bad pick at first base. Honestly, I could see him slipping and falling in leagues with, just the way things look here at a position that, once again, as Matt mentioned, is pretty deep. Let's move on to Gabriel Moreno. Somebody that Matt and I really loved coming into the season, and we were just telling people to draft him. Didn't know that injury was going to happen and give him the opportunity to, get a lot of playing time this year. Moreno on the year is a 23-year-old, 111 games, 341 at-bats, 33 runs, 19 doubles, a triple, 7 homers, 50 RBIs. And a 284 batting average. Moreno's always hit for batting average. We know that's going to be a thing with him. He will always hit for a very, very strong batting average. We kind of just want to wait and see if that power, develops at all. He's 5'11", 195. That's not a small dude, even if he just puts on a little bit more muscle. I'm hoping we can see maybe a 18 home run season, like a career high type thing in his prime, but he's got a little speed. He'll get you probably over 10 bags. Depends on where he's really going to hit in this lineup next year. It looks like, roster resource looks like he's going to have him third. I don't think that's sticky. I don't think he's really going to stay at third, but honestly, if he hits anyone in the top of that lineup, runs are going to be good. Steals are decent. The batting average is good. I have Moreno as my 14th catcher next year, which is, I think, a sweet spot when, he's not going to contribute in too many categories, but not a bad option, honestly, going into next year for catcher.
Yeah, no, I love Moreno, just like you said, man. I like him a lot just based off of the fact that, you know what, there is one category that usually catchers usually either do fantastic for you or they destroy you, and that's in batting average. So, quite honestly, I like the value
Yeah,
that's going to
it's
be on
going to help
him.
you.
I have Moreno at probably a little too high right now, probably at 8 for catcher. I like Moreno. I think that this year is kind of more of a bounce back. He had a slow start too, if we remember, where he just wasn't putting up
Yeah.
the counting stats, but he literally went on a run where like he had a 300 batting average for about 5 months of baseball, 4 months of baseball, and then kind of just slumped a little bit. But I think the power we kind of see like 15, 18, like you said, I think the ribbies are only going to get better. And we'll see what else kind of brings to the table here. I think Moreno just takes a step forward this year and does his thing. Maybe I'm a little too high on him. I don't know, but
Yeah, and just real quick, ADP does have him coming off the board as the number 9 catcher right now. Early ADP, number 9 catcher, pick 156. Catcher's just, I think, I don't want to go on a whole rant here, but catcher's just gotten kind of deep. So I think instead of throwing my dart at Moreno, I might wait when it comes to that point. But, there is upside. There is upside here.
yeah, I mean, quite honestly, depending on what round he's going in is what's really going to make a difference. Because normally when you're talking catcher 9 or 8 at that point, you're talking like pick 170, 200. So like at that point, if I'm looking for a catcher at that point, I might, throw my dart onto Moreno because there's no anything below catcher 5. You're generally not going as a top 100 pick or even a top 150 pick. So I'm kind of okay with that. But we'll see where that lands us. But let's move on here. Let's move on to Geraldo Perdomo. Nailed that pronunciation, I might add.
You did. I'm impressed.
Thank you, Baseball Reference. For new listeners, if you can't, you'll learn that I pretty much have a second grade reading level, especially when it comes to all these exotic names. So, I use a lot of the phonetic spelling. But anyway, so Geraldo had a good season ultimately. Age 23 season, 407 at bats, 71 runs, 20 doubles, 4 triples, 6 home runs, 47 ribs, 16 stolen bases, 64 walks to 86 strikeouts, and batted 246 and a 712 OPS. Now, with that walk to strikeout ratio, that it just makes me laugh because he's probably either fly balling like crazy or he's getting grounded out quite a bit. It's kind of ugly. In terms of like, let's talk about what the show is about, fantasy relevance. This dude isn't even on my radar. Like he won't even be drafted in my opinion for me. Perdomo I have so far down in my rankings, I probably wouldn't even be able to tell you. But ultimately we got to talk about him just so that like one, we're reviewing the Diamondbacks, and two, he's somebody that you should pretty much just have on your watch list for next year. And the reason why is not because you're going to pick him up and keep him for the whole year. He's going to be great pickups, and you're just going to want to keep an eye out for when he does get streaky, like he did at certain points of the season, was where he was valuable off the waivers, and when he cooled off, you dropped him. But other than that, don't even think about him during your drafts.
Yeah, he's a super, super deep league play. Once again, it's Geraldo Perdomo. He is going to have second, third, and short eligibility, looks like, in most leagues next season. Not a crazy amount of upside. He's not like a well-renowned, young player, but, hey, 24 next year, 71 runs this year, which is good. Not really a lot of power, not a lot of RBIs. 16 steals, honestly, is a little bit more steals upside there. He's very, very fast. Geraldo Perdomo. Batting average to be determined there, honestly. Not really much to offer. I have him as my 40th second baseman, my 40th shortstop there. But, before we move on here, we really get into, young guy, a lot of upside, and then the pitching things here, we do have to take a quick ad break. All right, folks, thanks for bearing with us through that one. So let's move on to a very, very young player. A lot of upside here. Let's talk about Jordan Lawler. Pretty much was a consensus top 10 prospect this season. Had a tough showing in the, very limited, opportunity he had this year in the bigs. 14 games to Lawler's in the big this year, 31 at bats. 2 runs, 4 hits, no homers, no RBIs, 1 steal, 11 strikeouts, 2 walks, a 129 batting average. Just wasn't very good. But you know what? In the minors this year, Lawler, very, very good. Played in AA and AAA, 105 games, 417 at-bats for Lawler, 95 runs, 23 doubles, 4 triples, 20 homers, 67 RBIs, 36 steals, 278 batting average. And then in 2022, 303 batting average, 16 homers, 39 steals in 100 games. A lot of upside here for Jordan Lawler going into next season. Honestly, I think he's got the spot. I think they're going to let the kid, just roll with the punches. Honestly, I think could just be a bargain at shortstop. Where do I have Lawler? I don't think I worked him in there. I think I was waiting some of these young guys to kind of, figure things out. Let's see ADP, honestly. Let's go to NFBC. Lawler at 23, so 23rd shortstop off the board. If you weren't watching the Orioles episode, Jackson Holliday is coming off the board at 20. So you see a lot of these young shortstops, they're there. People are taking them. It's picked 252 for Lawler. I just think, hey, you know what? If this kid comes out and really plays 150 games, talking about 18 homers, 35 steals, batting average potential is, 260 to 280, good big range, but, Lawler could do it. Counting stats could look nice. Honestly, I think Lawler's going to be a great dart throw if this ADP is sticky at the end of drafts this season. I think everyone's going to forget about him. You're going to honestly be able to get him for cheap and a lot of upside.
Yeah, I mean, Lawler is just somebody that, one, is just a really good talent, like Dom was saying, but two, a lot of players that get a cup of coffee that are top end prospects perform just as bad as Lawler did in his quick cup of coffee. Some maybe have one game that inflates their stats a little bit where the batting average looks more like, a little bit more promising than, a what do you call it? A 129 batting average. But I mean, hey, I'm going to take a shot on him next year. I have him actually at 20 at shortstop right now. So ultimately I'm okay with it. And I think he's going to be a really, really nice stash until we hit spring training and this kid starts matching and he's going to start flying up draft boards. But, we'll see what happens with Lawler. I have a lot of high hopes for him. But let's move on. Let's talk about Zach Gallen. Sorry, double click there. Zach Gallen, man, what a good season, but what a terrible ending.
Well said.
Zach Gallen was pretty much like the number one pitcher through July. And then August hit, and then it got really, really fugly. You look at it and you look at what he did this year, career high in innings by far. He has 30 more innings pitched than his whole career, 210 this year. And I think the fatigue was kind of kicking in. He had, he just was one of those things. His next highest was 184. So outside of that, the numbers are fantastic, even with that bad last 2 months. 210 innings pitched, 220 strikeouts, a 3.47 ERA with a 1.119 WHIP. Fantastic. With a FIP, fielding independent pitching, of a 3.27. And just how I use FIP, I use it to kind of give me a baseline of what a pitcher is actually pitching at. So it's if they had an average defense behind them, this is what they actually would be pitching at. So, I would say that, it's not too far off, which means this is legitimate. And honestly, I think Gallen could have a year where this all comes together, where he gets close to what he did in the ERA department of the 2.54, but probably more like a 2.86 or like to 2.90 range. And he just has an incredible Cy Young year. I think that Gallen is 100% going to be a top pitcher next year. I think a top 5 probably almost anywhere. I love this dude. He's fantastic. I think his future is bright. And he's now 27 years old, starting to hit the prime ages for a pitcher. And I think that we're about to see the start of something very special. Lord have mercy on everybody who does not have Jordan Lawler. I mean, Jordan Lawler, Zach Gallen next year.
Yeah, Matt, great Zach Gallen rant. Don't really have too much to add. I have Gallen as my number 4 starting pitcher going into next year. As Matt mentioned, the upside is, absolutely tremendous with Gallen. Early ADP has him coming off the board as number 8 starting pitcher, pick 38 overall. Not mad at that. He's an ace pitcher. Zach Gallen, through his career, we have 115 starts, 3.21 ERA, 667 innings, 729 strikeouts, and a career whip of a 1.10. Honestly, I think he's only getting better. Age 28 next year, just a top starting pitcher the rest of the way. And Matt, you covered him very well. I really don't have much else to add there. Let's move on to, somebody who actually pitched really good again this year, Merrill Kelly. Merrill Kelly is just aging like fine wine at this point in his career, getting better as he goes along. The last 2 years have been very strong for Merrill Kelly. Honestly, I'm just combining the last 2 years because that's how good he's been over the last couple. It's 63 starts for Kelly, 25 wins, 16 losses, a 3.33 ERA, 378 innings, 364 strikeouts, a 1.16 whip. Honestly, Kelly's just like who did we talk about the other day, Matt? I was thinking about Merrill Kelly. I forget. It was just like an average pitcher. And I was just like, yeah, man, that's kind of what you get. I don't remember who it was. I can't remember. We were talking about him the other day on an episode 2. And I was just like, yeah, man, like pitcher, like 60, that's kind of like perfect. Actually, I have Merrill Kelly at 58. I think that's literally, you get him as your SP 5, 6, and you kind of just, all right, you just know what you got with him. There's no breaking out. But hey, he's going to be consistent for you all year, long.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's like an ugly name for me. I like where you have him ranked. That's pretty much probably where he's going to end up for me. In all honesty, I look at him and I'm just like, I have no desire to go out there and go draft the kid. In all honesty, but hey, like at 50 at my pitcher, 5-ish, I'm okay with that. And if he can keep building on this, we'll see. But I don't know. That's just how I feel. But anyway, it's not the sexiest pick is essentially what I'm getting at. Like
it's just making me angry. I can't think of who the pitcher that we talked about the other day was at this point.
Yeah. But I look at Merrill Kelly like, okay, like he's a good solid name, but like there's sexier names that'll be around there that
I think it was Nathan Eovaldi. Might have been Eovaldi when we're talking about the Rangers.
Yes,
just like
probably
regular pitcher,
Yeah.
Just
but
decent.
Ultimately, I look at Kelly like, okay, well, am I going to pick the hot shot, kind of name that has a lot more upside than Kelly, or am I going to go with Mr. Consistency as a strong, solid 5? And I guess based off of team construction, you can make that call. Let's move on. Let's talk about somebody that has kind of had some bright spots and then kind of really didn't. And that's Brandon Pfaadt. His season numbers looks like he fought it everywhere because it was just ugly. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. So during the regular season, he started about 18 games, 96 innings pitched total, 94 strikeouts, a 5.72 ERA with a 1.406 whip. It just wasn't great. I think his best month down the stretch was a 4.07 ERA. But I mean, this is kind of what to be expected of a player getting his first shot at the bigs, right? So like, I'm not really too upset of it. But this is where like I'm kind of like, okay, there's a little bit more upside, and I'm going to question, where exactly I'm going to rank him next year and how aggressive I might be with him. And hear me out. It's what he did during the playoffs. So he had 22 innings pitched through the playoffs, and only one start was under 4 innings, and that was the first game against Milwaukee. Against the Dodgers, he pitched pretty well. He had 4 innings. He had a 3.86 ERA. Against the Phillies, for the first start, he went 5 innings. He had a 2.13 ERA. Was playing fantastic during that. Like, good job. Along with that, in that start, he had 9 strikeouts. Then the Phillies again on the second time, and he had a 2.70 ERA with 7 Ks to go with that. I think he kind of figured it out that like he could kind of almost do what he normally did in the minors and kind of was able to really step up and put on his big boy pants and actually pitch under pressure. So Pfaadt is going to be very interesting. I don't know how much of a playoff bump I'm going to give this kid in my rankings, but I think that he's going to be somebody that I'm going to be drafting nicely. I just don't know where yet. Probably like a top from 55 to 65 range is probably where I'm going to have him. It's going to be an interesting case for Brandon Pfaadt.
Yeah, man, you got him a little higher than, I think I'm going to ultimately have him. I was at the end when I just kept thinking of names as I was doing my rankings. I was throwing names on the end, and he was one of those names. And honestly, Matt, you took my my argument right away from me. I was going to go with those playoff numbers through those 5 starts in the playoffs that were very good. I think there is big upside here with Fott, but I think the ERA is going to be the thing that always holds him back until he really takes that next step as far as, limiting just hits and, the long ball in general with Fott. Because I think even in the minors, it was always a pretty high 3 ERA, except when he was pitching in, A-ball. But I'll have Fott. If you can get him as like your last starting pitcher, I think there's upside there. But I think, if I had to predict 30 starts for him next year, I'm going to say like a 4.3 ERA with, 160, 170 innings. But here's the upside, 200 strikeouts with Fott. And honestly, the control is a lot better the postseason. Maybe if you get like a 1.25 whip. So he's not going to kill you in fantasy, but I think he'll be, solid. But that's really, guys, that's all for today on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Please be sure to, subscribe, rate, review, and all that fun stuff. Shout out to our everydayers and listeners for making this your first listen each and every day. But guys, until next time, see you.